Hello, I'm Kathleen Putnam, and I'm here with Ginger Hultin, who is now a second-time author. Is this your second book?
Second book.
Second book. How to Eat to Beat Disease Cookbook. Beautiful color. Her other book, The Anti-Inflammatory Diet Meal Plan. Beautiful covers. It makes me want to eat.
It's really about the joy of food. That's what I love about both these books.
Okay. Good. So I'm just going to jump right in and ask some questions about it so that people really know what they're getting and also get to know you a little bit better about what with this cookbook that's released tomorrow and going out
Yes.
in the mail. Yep. What do you want people to most to know about this cookbook?
This cookbook is it's really dynamic. It's really has a little bit more complex of recipes, some of them. I try to keep it as easy as possible, but it really has a range of like very easy to more complex. And I really went out on a limb with this cookbook. Most of my work is always very plant-based. So people have been like shocked to see a chapter about chicken and a chapter about seafood. That was a little bit outside my comfort level, but ultimately the research is showing benefits for those foods. And this is a very research-based book. And I want all my books to reach as many people as possible. And not everyone's going to be vegan or vegetarian. So I really, I'm finding like families and, people are like, oh, like I really love having these types of chapters. So, it's diverse, it's versatile, and it really is based on the research. And I think that is the most important thing, is that it's just breaking down the science behind it.
I love it because that's why healthcare professionals writing books like this that are food experts as well as the health expert. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful blend of that. And I also think making it more accessible to more people, and you're definitely speaking to families to be able to substitute different things in. That is a constant thing in my practice and with people that we work with. Ask about, what if
Yeah.
somebody's eating this and I'm not? And most people on a vegetarian continuum are eating some forms of animal products and go in and out of it a lot of times throughout their life. So that's great.
Yeah, I think it is hopefully helpful. My message is not you need to eat more animal-based foods. My message is very much you need to eat more plant-based foods, but also I do want to be realistic and meet people where they're at. And you're right, like a lot of people do weave in a variety. A lot of my chicken or seafood-based meals, actually, that's not even the main part of it. There's all sorts of other vegetables and other ingredients in there, or there's also beans. So that is one way I talk to people about eating meat, is like, how can it be more of a piece of what you're eating instead of the main entree?
Right. Yeah. So boosting up those plant-based foods around meat. Yeah. Wonderful. So it's interesting because it's not disease specific. I loved Eat to Beat Disease, like cancer, heart disease, IBS. We always see books like this. So tell me more about how that works.
Yeah, I mean, like you, I work in the realm of chronic diseases, and whether it's diabetes, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune, cancer, of course, cancer is my passion. We're trying to eat to either prevent these from happening or to reduce like the damage that they're doing, or to overcome, once we're in remission with any of one of these things, to move forward in a healthy way. So a lot of my work, it's not just for one specific disease. It's actually beneficial for all, because people come to me, they're like, I need to work on my blood pressure and my cholesterol. I'm also a cancer survivor. I'm like, great. What I have to show you actually is going to be helpful for all of that. So to me, instead of talking about one disease, the way that I practice can really help with all. And so I like taking that holistic, like really round picture of eating for your health.
I love that you say that because I know working a lot with cardiovascular disease, people will have cancer, but not realize that most people with particular kinds of cancer end up dying with heart disease. So
Right.
that overlap is super important. So tell me about the book talks about the body's defense systems, the DNA, the microbiome, cell regeneration, immunity. And I mean, it just strikes me as like the 21st century of nutrition. So tell us about that more.
Well, I was lucky enough to work with you actually at our last position, where we got to work very in depth with genetics. Like, how does nutrition influence genes? How do genes influence nutrition? So I would say that job forever changed my life. I came to that job from a cancer care, integrative cancer clinic. So like I came in with the clinical oncology, then I'm doing genetics, and I was like, oh, these two things, like you can't do one without the other. And then we did a lot of microbiome too. So just weaving in like how all these systems work. And, you know, like somebody was like, I've never even heard of the word angiogenesis before, but that really just is, I have a whole chapter about it. It's like how blood vessels form or don't form and how that affects your health. But we talk about that in cancer care a lot. So it's just really how everything's playing off each other. And then the final thing that was so fun is I've been doing a lot of talking about the immune system ever since the pandemic. I'm sure you have too. People have a lot of questions about it. But the microbiome influences the immune system, and the immune system influence the microbiome and disease. And there's all this intersectionality of eating healthy, disease states, science. And so to me, we have the technology, so we should be utilizing it.
I really appreciate what you're saying, because so many people are reading about these fantastic discoveries, and definitely it's where the birth of superfoods come in sometimes. And
Yeah.
also people really wanting to have that formula and that recipe and that practical how to, with the understanding and the science that backs it up. So some things are really hyped up. So I love how it's concentrated and that overlap. What's good for your heart is good for your brain, good for, prevention of cancer and remission. So yeah, many of the recipes are dairy or gluten-free and soy and nut-free. That the labeling is fantastic for people who are going through and trying to find particular recipes. We definitely know that that's the case, that kids might have a nut allergy or a soy allergy or gluten sensitivity. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's less of a commentary on what you should or should not be eating, and more of like, I want this to be accessible to as many people as possible. So if you come over to my house for dinner, I'm going to say, okay, what do you eat? What do you not eat? And so this book is like, you're coming over to my house for dinner. And I really, if you're vegan, you can eat this book. You can eat this book. You can eat things out of this book. And if you're a meat eater, you can eat things out of this book, And so a lot of the things that I make are very naturally gluten-free. Like I cook a lot with potatoes or rice or quinoa, right?
Right.
Or they're naturally dairy-free. Like, that just is a way that I naturally cook. There is a scientific reason for some of those things. Like the book that I wrote is based on the work of Dr. William Li and a lot of research that both of us are pulling from human studies. And like, red meat, high consumption of it doesn't seem to be super helpful for preventing disease, right? But like eating more plant foods does. So it's evidence-based, but also it's designed to be very accessible. So hopefully, I'm so glad that you're giving me this feedback. You read through and you know exactly, I can have this, or I can't have this, or this is how I can adapt these things for me.
The layout's really easy to read. From a grocery shopping list is fantastic. People love meal plans. What would it look like if I put this into practice for the week? What would I have to buy at the grocery store at the time? So tell us about the adaptations that you can make in the recipes, just because of this, having multiple needs under a household, or would you buy the book if you were dairy free, etc.?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're vegan, vegetarian, dairy free, gluten free, I think you're going to have no problem at all. Somebody had in one of the reviews, somebody had noted, well, there's a whole chapter on chicken, but the author suggests if you don't eat chicken, just weave in tofu or tempeh for almost any of those things, right? Same with the seafood. So you can easily swap it out. But for my first book is very plant-based, and I got a lot of people saying, well, what if I want to eat more meat? Cool. Swap in an animal-based protein and swap out the tofu or tempeh. So there's just a lot of different options, and that is how you can just look at the recipe and what the swaps are. And very often I'm actually writing about exactly what they are in the text.
I love that you have tofu and tempeh and plant-based recipes in both of the books, because people don't know how to prepare those. People are very familiar with how to prepare chicken and add chicken to recipes. So that's fantastic. A swap does not feel like a big leap for most people if they're cooking. Some people are at 101 and they need that basic cooking. So something for everybody. What are some of the most important food trends that you're noticing? When you write a cookbook, I always hear these things, but I don't know if I have a very good scope of like what all the food trends are. I think we get very area specific and then our client specific. So writing a cookbook, I would imagine you're much more in the know.
Yeah, there's some really fun stuff going on right now. I mean, some constant trends that I see are swapping out dairy, swapping out gluten, and being more plant-based. And especially like being maybe flexitarian, that diet got rated very highly this year, 2021, and like the diet ratings. So it's like I eat mostly plant-based, or I eat plant-based, 90% of the time, but then you weave in some animal foods maybe. So that concept really is inside this book. I also cook with some kind of fun ingredients, right? I cooked with like a lot of Romanesco, or I cooked with purple potatoes, or I cooked with, I don't know, lots of mushrooms. And I live here in the Pacific Northwest like you do, but I know that the things that I have access to aren't, necessarily what other people have access to, and vice versa. So what's really fun is, if you can't find Romanesco, use cauliflower. If you don't like cauliflower, use broccoli. There's definitely ways to, you can't find purple potatoes, use red ones or white ones. So just like taking superfoods and making swaps also, to me, is like a really fun food trend that you can either jump on board with or not, and just go with what's more familiar.
Right. And just, yeah, accessible, like what you said. So, and the more that people get confident and competent about being able to do that, then there's more experimentation to be had. So that's fantastic, which is a lot of what people are wanting when they come see us. So
Yeah.
that is so supportive. Were there any surprises going from the first cookbook that you wrote with the anti-inflammatory diet meal prep, and then this one? Was there anything that was surprising?
Well, with the anti-inflammatory diet meal prep, I was really trying to keep things extremely simple. I wrote that book for people that are actually inflamed, people that have cancer, people that have autoimmune diseases. And I have gotten so many really wonderful stories of people that are like, I can't use my hands very well, or I can't stand in the kitchen for very long. I can cook this way because it's simple. So to me, that book was like simple, 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 very simple, and really meal prep based. So then I was doing this one, and I will say I was using a wider range of ingredients, and there are a little bit more complex recipes. There's also some very simple ones. I try to make everything like be around a half hour or less if possible, or have adaptations to do that. It's just, or sheet pan, easy stuff is really where I'm at, because I know that nobody really wants to be in the kitchen for super long. But it was hard for me to shift from like meal prep, meal prep, meal prep to a really non-meal prep book. So what you will see in there is like, make this ahead. It makes great leftovers, because I do believe that part of healthy eating is being able to cook in batches and have some for later, so you got lunch the next day.
Yeah, ease and consistency. Yep, people are wanting easy. So that's wonderful. Yeah, so there is a difference. And did you know, by having more complexity and having more ingredients, what was that like for you? Was it more fun? Was it more adventuresome? Is it for the adventurous more?
Yeah, maybe a little, because I use some kind of unusual ingredients. Or, when I was doing the seafood section, it was really important to me to talk about sustainability and to really talk about what's good for our human bodies, but also what's good for the earth. And so I'm using like anchovies, sardines, mackerel, like kind of, shellfish, and really looking at sustainable sources that are low in mercury, and just, kind of the underdogs of what we're usually thinking. Like, it doesn't have to be salmon or halibut every day. That's not even accessible to everyone. Or I'm using canned salmon or canned tuna, so it can be more affordable and more accessible. So those are some of the ways that I was looking at this, is how do we get a little creative and use some new ingredients, but also make it familiar at the same time.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to call out the ease of something like that. If you have canned fish on hand, that's something that could be your backup supply, something when you can't have access to fresh, or you realize, oh, our protein went bad, or it's all gone, we used it all up, or
Yep.
yeah, wonderful. So I couldn't help but when I learned about the book, and then I listened to one of your videos, and I also read your blog, is that you were able to test the recipes. How many were you testing, and your colleagues and friends?
Yeah, it was really fun. You know, I mean, the volume of the recipes in these books, like this one has 75. I think my first one had over 85. It's so much. And I'm just like moving pretty quickly. So I'm always testing all of them. But then I was like having my interns, I'm like, go buy these groceries, test these things. And for like the walnut lentil loaf, one of my interns was like, well, I really don't think it should be like mashed. I think we should have more of the whole pieces. I was like, okay, great. So like people's real-time feedback of really trying it for their families, I was incorporating that feedback. Or one of my close friends made a whole roast chicken for her family. I have there's two of us here, and I don't eat much meat, so I'm like, can someone else try this? She said it's one of the favorite recipes that they've ever made, and now they're using it all the time. So like she tried it on her kids with her husband. So that was fun feedback. And then I actually have a really close friend that is a professional baker, and she reviewed all of my baking recipes and my sourdough recipe. And she actually gave feedback on how she teaches her sourdough class, what they do in the bakery, how to make it more simple. So like all of that like love and connectivity and like expertise is in this book, which is really fun.
Yeah, and I mean, you're calling out the expertise, right? Somebody who's cooking chicken a lot for a family. It's a different skill set and know-how and challenges. And same thing with baking and sourdough for sure.
Yeah, like there's so many people in this book that like really love food. So that's fun because it has real life testing all throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and those little details people notice. They
Yeah.
notice the ease, the taste, the extra effort to make it easier and more accessible to more people. So that's fantastic. Where can people find the book, Ginger? Want to get
Well, I
hands
mean,
on
yeah, get your hands on it. I have one too.
it.
Yeah. Um,
Pretty.
you know, it's on Amazon for sure. And Amazon, I think, is really where that helps it reach a wide audience. And if you read it, I really appreciate people getting honest reviews because it helps other readers understand, like, you know, is this for me? Will I like it? Does it have what I'm going to need in there? So that's really kind of like the dynamic platform. So this one and my other book, Anti-Inflammatory Diet Meal Prep, is in Amazon, but I also got it in a few local bookstores. And I think that's really, really fun. A lot of people are like, I really only want to buy it local. Like, what can I do? So Madison Books in Madison Valley here in Seattle, Ballast Book Co. in Bremerton, Liberty Bay Books in Paulsbo, all three of them. Also, Performance Kitchen Crafted, which is a really cool like frozen food company. They carry it in their stores. Yeah, so you're like picking up your frozen food, you're picking up my books. So those are some of the tops, and so really proud to have it in local stores.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This is so fun to learn more about the book and get it out to more people so more people can feel better and live their very best life.
That's really what I want. And with my first book, I wasn't even really expecting the response that I get. I mean, I have people that I don't know writing me messages, their A1C dropped, right? Their blood sugars are better. I had one person tell me that their cholesterol dropped 100 points from like after doing my program for 8 weeks. It's a 6-week program. So it's pretty amazing. And I mean, I know that it's powerful, but to like actually hear the real stories and the doctors that are saying, what did you do? Like, how did you do this? And they're like, a whole foods plant-based diet. It's very powerful. So I really hope that the new book can do the same thing and help people that much too.
I love it. So helping diabetes, helping inflammation, helping cholesterol levels, all of those different potential disease risk factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I can't wait to start cooking out of it.
Let me know how it goes.
I will. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ginger.